First of all, welcome, Sophia. You've had a busy morning.
I've been up since 4:30. I'm struggling, but I'm awake.
So before we get started, because of course I have questions that I want to ask you that are very specific to our gathering here, but before we get into that, what is so important that we do is acknowledge what is going on just a few blocks behind me and how the impact of what's going on behind me is changing the game, one, historically, but it's also changing the game in other ways. And so before I ask you any questions, I want to allow you a moment to share your thoughts about what's going on in the Capitol right now.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and good morning. As you know, right now, as we sit here right down in the Senate Russell building, there's a hearing going on. Dr. Ford testified. I watched it, was riveted like everyone else. She is very credible. You could hear her breathing, the fear, the stress of it. Twitter and social media is abuzz right now. Towanna Burrows in the room, Alyssa Milano, Me Too members are in the room. Washington hasn't been like this since 1991, and I remember being a first semester law student during the 1991 hearings, and as a young woman of color aspiring to be an attorney, to watch what Anita Hill was put through was, to say the least, upsetting. Fast forward 27 years later, wow. And to find myself on TV this morning, now an attorney admitted to the Supreme Court, all those things, talking about it, was a strange moment indeed. But I think the key moment for the country is that we are having this debate once again, 27 years later, and the game has changed. The rules have changed. The dialogue has changed. Not perhaps as much as we would like, but even the treatment, particularly by Chairman Grassley, who was there during Anita Hill's questioning, they completely deferred the Republicans to a female counsel, which I find fascinating. I don't agree with it because it's their job to advise and consent, and they should have to ask the tough questions. And the fact that they feared how they would look to the rest of the world, so much so that they completely gave up their rights to question, is something that's really fascinating. The Democrats, however, are asking the questions. And again, I just was watching in the other room, and Twitter and social media is abuzz about the fact that how credible she is. And I see prominent Republicans now saying, I don't see how we go forward with this in light of this testimony. We didn't have social media in 1991. We didn't have the internet in 1990. We had none of that. And the allegations against Justice Thomas was that he talked crude and despicable. This is something quite different. It's sexual assault. Yeah. And a week ago, there was only one person. A week later, there are four. Now, whether or not those things have been corroborated, etc. Look, I'm an attorney. I believe in due process. Judge Kavanaugh has every right to be heard as anyone else. He's denying these allegations. The women are saying is true. It's interesting to see how we decide whether or not this is a he say, she say, yeah, or something bigger. And I think it's a bigger moment for us. I think it is a look at our culture. I was a teenager, regrettably, I have to admit this to you, during the 1980s. Brett Kavanaugh's only a couple years older than me. I look way better than him, but that's not the point. The point is, you know what they say, black don't crack. Sorry, you guys can appreciate that. But my mother's in the room, and I won't out her age, but she looks great. And my grandmother, who's almost 90, looks even better. So, good gene pool. But having said that, I grew up in that culture of the 1980s, the beer pongs, the drinking upside down on kegs. Not that I know anything about that, Mom. But, you know, pledging sororities and fraternities, of which I did. And the behavior where there weren't these lines, Towanna, the term date rape was coined when I was in college. I never forget my first semester of college as an undergraduate in California. I went to undergrad in San Diego, and there was a rape on campus of a Delta Gamma sorority member. She was a freshman, and the Pi Kappa Alpha House was having some big party, and she had too much to drink, some grain alcohol. Her sorority sisters put her in a room thinking they'd let her lay down and be okay. 3 drunk guys came in, assaulted her. She was so ruined physically that she would never be able to have children. It's seared into my mind. Of course, she left the campus. The school was sued. The fraternity forever banned. This was 1986. But the culture then was still to say, what did the girls do wrong? Why weren't they responsible? Right. It still was, we don't want to ruin these boys' lives. Right. And I see that playing out right now. We don't want to ruin this man's life. And of course we don't. He's got daughters. I am mortified that his daughters are hearing this about their beloved dad. It says something quickly about the culture we're in our politics. We're in the sewer, folks, if you didn't know it, and it's despicable. There has to be a line we draw. Some line. Not a line if we've committed crimes. If I've sexually assaulted or abused somebody, you should know about that. But there's got to be a place where we say, we got to let you be a teenager. We got to let you make mistakes as a human being. And we have to show some grace and redemption if you do something better with your life. And I think that's the debate I want us to have. So that's the moment we're in. And I think it's a big diversity and inclusion moment about whether we're going to believe women or not. What's the line that we give men to defend themselves? How do we protect our daughters and our sons? Right. It's loaded.
So I'm going to attempt to take you back for just a second and just talk about your unique voice as
Take me back? No, I'm not telling you stuff I did. What?
No.
I'm teasing.
Just to take you back a second, just so that we can get to know you a little bit better, right?
Let me say this, sorry. I was thinking about running.
This is why.
I know.
We're friends.
But listen.
So I'm trying to be...
I'm going to let her talk, but listen. I was thinking, a month ago...
the Oprah thing. Forget this. I'm just
gonna... Listen, a month ago I was thinking about running for public office, but now that alcohol drinking in college is on the table, I don't know. So, I mean, I'm just saying, or I'm going to have to hold a press conference and tell everything I did first before I do something. Right. But I'm serious, it was some funny stuff on Twitter. A lot of Gen Xers were saying, well, our whole generation is now off the table because we're in trouble. We drink a lot. So at any rate. Anyway, go ahead. I'm going to let you talk. I'm sorry.
The question is about you being a unique voice as a woman of color who is also a Republican.
I am.
And very proud of it, she is. And, not today?
I've been feeling some kind of way for years, as you know about it.
Yes, I do.
But anyway, it's all good. Go ahead.
Let's talk about the unique challenges that you've had to navigate through, knowing that those are some of the things that, the challenge of being Republican, the challenge of being a woman of color. Tell me a little bit about some of the things you had to face.
Well, the first time I came to that Capitol down there, my mom and dad brought me, and I was maybe a sophomore in high school, and I knew that I wanted to be in Washington, I wanted to be in public service. I was a congressional presidential intern, something like that. And then I worked in the U.S. Senate, and I worked on the Hill. The Republican Party that I joined in 1988 is not the Republican Party of 2018. They're different. Jack Kemp was my mentor. Christy Todd Whitman was my first boss out of school. Pete Wilson, a U.S. Senator from California, was a senator I interned for. These were moderate. I worked for Daddy Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, the last Republican president, by the way, to get double digits of the black vote, the last. And there was a lot of hopes, even from people like Lanny Guinier, who would be remember Lanny Guinier? Far, far, far on the other side, who wrote an amazing piece back then saying that she felt that Daddy Bush would be the last Republican president that would have a chance to galvanize minority voters. Now, I think that there's a future for the GOP because it's going to get wiped out after this, and then it's going to have to rebuild. And I mean that sincerely. Yeah. It's in a lot of trouble culturally. It's disconnected. It's clueless. But the navigation, and one of my dearest friends is Kellyanne Conway. We're 12 days apart in age. We both grew up in South Jersey. We're Jersey girls. And Kellyanne's not one of my favorite people right now, but I told her that before I told you that. And we've had very divergent paths. As a black woman in the Republican Party, the opportunities available to me were not the same as those to my white peers, male or female, or others. In fact, it was hostile. It was difficult. When I was a committee counsel on the House Government Reform and Oversight in 1998-7, I was the first black person and black female of color to be ever on that committee. My boss was a woman named Barbara Comstock, who's now my congresswoman in Virginia. And yeah, it's been difficult. It was hostile. It was ugly. You don't get the same passes. You don't get to make the same mistakes. If you do, they're fatal. If they do, it's okay. And again, we're seeing all this play out right now in real time. Yeah. You know, to talk about Bill Cosby for a moment, what he did was despicable. Did I mess up your question? Okay, I won't go there. So, bottom line, though, I'm here. Yeah. I'm thriving. I'm doing okay. And it, whenever you're the first at something, yeah. Whenever you're a trailblazer, whenever you're a pioneer, it's always going to be tough. Right. But I will run for office as a Republican in Virginia. I'm not going to say when or where for what, but I will, and I'll win. And I'll serve, and I will help to rebuild the party of Lincoln the way it was meant to be. The party of Lincoln. Not this, whatever it is now, that ain't it. But change comes from within, and Shirley Chisholm told me that one day when I was a young woman. She said, we need you to be a Republican. We need people like you, because we have to have political parties with good people in both of them.
Well, first of all, I would like to say, from one who knows a little bit about your decision to run for political office, that for you to make that statement, there is something going on in your heart.
It's burning. I want to run now, but I can't. It's not time yet.
I understand. So let's talk about how we are able to move the ball forward. Because what we do today when it comes about inclusion, and from a political position, and for those of us who are leaders, coaches, counselors, consultants, we typically have to navigate through the political environment as well, even in what we do in office politics as well. What can we do to move the ball forward during this unique time in history?
I can't tell you how many corporate executives, particularly HR, COO directors of major Fortune 50, 100, 500 companies told me after the 2016 election that they had something happening in the workplace that they had never had happen before. People literally fighting with each other over politics. It was, they said they had never seen the visceralness of it, the anger, the division among race, among gender, those who supported Trump and those who didn't, and how it was really bringing up stuff in people. And so they were like, how do we deal with this? And I think that what you're seeing now, the reason I wrote E Pluribus One, you all know that our founding motto is E Pluribus Unum, out of many, one. Well, certainly when the founding fathers came up with that motto in 1780, when Sam Adams commissioned it with Charles Thompson in Philadelphia, they weren't thinking about women and people of color. What they were thinking about was the 13 colonies and the fact that the South and the North had divisions always. Don't get it twisted. There was never this unity thing going on with us. There were always divisions and fractures in this great nation when it started. Half the country wanted slavery, the other half did not. Slavery, again, be clear, was the issue of the day that was dividing the country. So when they came up with the motto, E Pluribus Unum, out of many, one, they were saying something, I think, profound to all of us here today, that diversity of thought matters, diversity of region matters, diversity of politics matters, diversity of how your economics, all of this matters. But at the end of the day, as Lincoln said, fast forward 100 plus years later, Lincoln was saying, I will do whatever it takes to preserve the Union. Because Lincoln understood it. Now it had expanded. It was more global. Now it had to include people of color. Right. African Americans, specifically 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. The radical Republicans of the 1860s. That's right. The radical Republicans of the 1860s are the ones that passed that legislation. Right. The parties have flipped identities, in case you didn't know. They flipped personalities in the 1960s, about the late 60s, with Nixon's Southern strategy, when it began in the late 60s and early 70s. My point is this, to your point. If you're working in HR now, if you're in corporate, whatever you do, please understand that politics, race, gender, sexuality, all those things now are big. They matter, and you got to navigate them in your workplace. Not having an inclusive workplace is not an option. It's not real. You won't thrive. You won't get higher market share. You won't have the customer base you want. I don't care if you're at Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, or if you're at Xerox or IBM or Google. It doesn't matter. This room right now reflects what America looks like, and I love the way this room looks, by the way, because it is very diverse.
Thank you.
But I think that what you see going on up there, right there behind you, if you turn and look, the Republican side of the aisle, my side of the aisle, is an embarrassment. 11 white men, no women. In 202 years, the Republicans have never put a woman on the Judiciary Committee. So I'm going to come help y'all soon. So the thing is, it is, at the end of the, I just gave you a hint. So having said that, I think that we really have to be clear that everything is now melded together. There are no more where we can draw these lines and boxes and say we put the women over there, we put the blacks over there, we put the gay people over here. It doesn't work like that anymore, because your boss may be gay and you don't know it. Your next boss may be a woman of color and you've never met one before in your life. So we've got to start talking to each other and integrating into that oneness. It doesn't mean, let me say this, if you hear nothing else I say today, listen to me, listen. Dissent is good. Disagreement is good.
Right.
Friction is good. That's what our country's founded on. We're healthier that way. We're not supposed to all agree like a bunch of drones. We're not supposed to all get along all the time. But at the end of the day, we're supposed to be Americans. And we're supposed to love our country and respect each other even when we may disagree. The death of civility in our corporate spaces, in our workplaces, in our education, in our leadership, right there in that glorious capital, has been lost. And that's what we need to get back to.
But you just mentioned something that was super important. You were talking about that we don't talk to each other, we talk at each other. And I want you to share a bit about how can we close that gap. Because, you know, as people who are in the business of helping, what do you suggest? Because, you know, it can get downright dirty and frustrating.
I have a great anecdote. I went recently to Walgreens, to their corporate headquarters out in Illinois, and they had me in to talk about The Woman Code, which is everybody's favorite book. I need them to read this one, but they all love The Woman Code. Anyway, so I'm there at the women of Walgreens, and it's, you know, Walgreens is one of the world's big companies. And Steve Pemberton, who was then the diversity VP, is now, he went on to someplace else, but Steve knows my politics, and Steve knows that I'm following the more conservative side. And Steve knows that I had written a number of articles and had taken a position probably when Obama was in his second term and the whole gay marriage issue came up. And as a devout Christian, and, you know, my belief was that marriage is between a man and a woman. And of course, you know, I said that because it's what I think.
Right.
Respecting the other point of view, which is that it's not, that marriage expands, as it did in Loving versus Virginia to African Americans, so it did in the landmark case that passed in 2012 and about the gay marriage.
Yeah.
So now that is likewise legalized. So as a lawyer, obviously gay marriage is now legal. I respect that. I honor that. I had a gay assistant. That was an experience for me. Having a gay male assistant with me being as conservative as I can be. But it was great. Thought he was wonderful, and it helped to expand my horizons. I forced myself to do that because I need to. What I'm telling all of you, I have to practice.
Right.
But what Walgreens did, what Steve did, Steve knew that when they announced I was coming, the gay and lesbian group at Walgreens was upset. They didn't want me to come. They said she should be banned from coming. Don't miss this, because this is what we want to do to each other now when we disagree. And Steve was like, of course she's coming. She's coming to talk about women. He said, but I tell you what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to get you and Sophia Nelson in a room when she gets here. The gay and lesbian pride group and Sophia Nelson are going to have a meeting, closed behind doors, and we're going to talk. And we had that meeting. I walked in bearing gifts. You know, I brought stuff because I was scared, because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I mean, scared in a way like I thought I was going to get tore up, right? And again, I'm like, okay, you're a big girl. You can handle this. But what happened, and I wrote about this, you can Google it. I couldn't wait to write about it. It was the most amazing dialogue I've ever had. The most wonderful people, they're just like me, they're people. And I'm just like them, they're people. I'm just being honest. I'm trying, because y'all know some of you got these same thoughts I had, right? And you got to work through them, and you You got to be brave enough to sit down across the table from somebody and hear. And as this one young woman shared with me, I'm never going to forget this. Is a gay couple, and they're married, 2 ladies, and she shared how she knew she was gay when she was young. And when she came out to her parents, her family was very religious. She's Hispanic. They kicked her out of the family. And you could still see 30 years later, this woman was still messed up by this.
Yeah.
Deeply wounded and hurt. Because her family didn't want her just because she was gay. And that moment kind of changed my thought process. As a Christian, the first thing that leaped up in me is I got out of my seat. I walked over to her. And my mom, she said, I don't hug and touch. That ain't my thing. So anyway, I went and I kind of put my arm around her. And I said, that's not Jesus. That's not Jesus. That's not right. That's not what it is. I need you to know there's nothing wrong with you. And I couldn't believe what I was saying, right? So it came up out of me because that's what it means to really be a Christian and a person of faith.
Yes.
You love people when they're hurting. You reach and help. My point in sharing the story is that's how we fix it. We're not having the conversations, and what we want to do is ban somebody from the campus because we don't agree. Ann Coulter, I think, is a nightmare. But you know what? She has a right to feel what she feels and say what she says because this is America. And that's what makes us the most unique country and nation on the earth. I went to Australia recently. I went to Sydney. I hated the 22-hour plane flight. It was a beautiful country. But they are a parliamentary system or socialism. And they can't do certain things. They got to watch what they say. When I spoke in Canada and did a TV show up there, they gave me a list of things I could not say because they could get pulled off of air. And I'm like, what? I love America even more now because I can say anything. I can even cuss on TV if I want to. And I don't want to. But what I'm saying is that you have to understand this great country that you're in. It's got flaws. It's jacked up at times. We're not right in this moment we're in. We're embarrassed. That press conference yesterday, wow. At the end of the day, all I can say is we have to understand that what makes us great and different is that we do fight. We do have friction. We do disagree. But at the end of it, we're Americans. And that's after 9/11.
Yes.
I worked here. Mom was a nurse at hospital center. They were taking the burn victims from the Pentagon. I'll never forget that day, as will many of you who were either in New York or here. It was surreal. But I saw something rise up in us. There was no black or white. There was no gay or straight. There was none of that day. It was I saw Maxine Waters get on TV and defend George Bush. Now, you know, that was big, all right? She said, that's my president. Don't talk about him. I was like, huh? So the thing is, that's the kind of moment we were in. And we need to remember that it's okay to fight.
Right.
But incorporate it in what you do, and thank you for what you do, by the way, all of you. Just go to coffee. This may sound dumb. Invite somebody who's the conservative at your office that you can't stand. Exactly. The one who loves Trump. He got Trump stickers on his desk. And he got a Make America Great Again hat, MAGA hat. And you're like, oh my God. Invite that man out to coffee.
And listen.
And just listen. And don't you you can set some ground rules like, look, I'm not going to talk about whatever you're going to talk. But can we just have a cup of coffee and talk about the project we're doing? Just make an effort to get to know somebody, and you'll be surprised.
Yes.
When my neighbors, I live in Leesburg, Virginia. It's conservative out there. When the neighbors come over and I invite them over for drinks and they start talking about if they love Trump, I leave the room in my own house because I know I'm going to say something bad, but I'm going to just let it be. And my mom watches Fox. I don't understand, but she likes Fox. I like MSNBC. So you understand what I'm saying? She's my mother. I'm not going to stop loving her because she watches Fox. I don't know why she does, but she does.
Okay.
We could ask her. I'm teasing.
Do I have time for a question? Did I talk too much? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, but the good thing is that
we can go over a little. I think they'd be all right.
It's okay. No, I cannot. Anybody?
She don't run on CP time. I do.
No. Anybody have a question?
Y'all catch that in a minute.
Any question? I would love to take a question from the audience before she gets up and leave. Any question? Yes. Let me.
It's okay. I just wanted to know what you were going to say about Cosby.
About who?
Bill Cosby? Oh, don't.
Yeah. Okay. I'll keep it tight.
Sorry.
Yeah. What I was going to say, and then let him ask a couple questions. That ain't right. It's all right. What I was going to say about Cosby is that, again, we're on display here right now. Bill Cosby deserves the sentence he got for the crimes he committed. Am I heartbroken that Cliff Huxtable turned out this way? I am. We all are. I mean, every Thursday night, Cosby in a different world. Y'all remember what I'm talking about. I mean, but there's a difference in how he's been handled versus Weinstein, Trump, Matt Lauer, Les Moonves, Steve Wynn, Brett Kavanaugh. I can keep going down a list. There seems to be elevation on that end for doing similar things, and then there seems to be somebody else that goes to prison. And I want you to think about that, because there is a difference how our justice system deals with people of color versus people who are not. That's just real. You don't have to like it, but it's true.
Right.
And again, I think that that's what I wanted to point out when we're talking. If we're going to have a real conversation, let's have a real one.
Right.
Let's talk honest. And to my white brothers and sisters, I saw the lady talk about, what was it? She was talking about whiteness or something. That was brave of you. Where's she at? Wave to me.
Marion.
Listen, you don't have to be, I feel like my white friends are afraid to be white now. Look, you're going to be white till you die. So you got to be okay with this, all right? It's okay. Don't be afraid of just other people. It's okay. And we need to remember that too. Yeah. We still all huddle in our little groups. Sometimes when I go to AK meetings, I'm like, are all my friends black? I need to work on this.
Right.
And that's not true. But I'm saying we get into our groups and we're comfortable there. So let some people ask some questions and I'll leave.
I cannot.
Let them ask at least one.
How much time do I have?
Okay, see, so y'all
One
can ask
question,
quick,
1 minute.
Young lady, yes.
Dietrich.
I'll just say this.
Please.
The question is, in the sector that you're in the political sector, how do you see that coaching can integrate that sector in a way that people can be authentic and real?
We need coaches very badly, and I'll be happy to give y'all the number of these people on the TV right here, because they need it really bad. And part of what I tweeted out yesterday, it was very popular, I said, again, if you're talking diversity and inclusion, you've got to deal with generational differences. You have in the workplace now baby boomers who are exiting out, Gen Xers who are now aging in and becoming the CEOs and the VPs and the whatever now because we're entering our 50s. And then you've got the millennials coming behind, and we all think very differently. We grew up with telephones. I love the phone.
Yeah.
I'm, the texting thing, okay, I can do that, but I still will pick up the phone because that's how I was raised. A baby boomer wants to knock on your door and have coffee and talk to you face to face. And you've got to remember that generational differences are part of what's broken in Washington. When you look at Charles Grassley and Orrin Hatch saying even if the rape allegations are true, it shouldn't keep him off the court. You're just disconnected, Orrin Hatch. You're broken. Because in his mind, back in the day when women are mixed up about these things. Yeah. They don't understand these things. A guy in his 20s or 30s would never be caught saying something like that. He knows better. So the answer to your question is we need a lot of coaching and training in politics, because most people that run for office, you see a lot of outliers now, right? Particularly on the Democrat side. You see young people, very progressive people. The Republican side is still pretty all white, all male, certain age. Even the Republican women, and there are 6 in the Senate. Have you seen any of them? They're hiding right now. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, but there's 6 Republican women that are elected. Yeah. Those 6 women should be on the TV saying something. The Democrat women are very vocal. The point I'm making is you're seeing an age gap. The Republican Party is aging and white. And I've been preaching this for 20 years and op-eds into the top of my lungs saying, I've been saying it, the country's browning. You're not going to be able to sustain this political model the way you have it if you don't get people to look like me and that can talk like me and that can talk to the electorate as well. So we need coaching. Politics is badly broken. They don't know. That's why they've seated. Look, turn around, look right now. That lady questioning is who the Republicans. None of the senators are talking on the GOP side. Folks, there's something wrong with that. That's broken. They have a constitutional duty under Article 3 to advise and consent to a Supreme Court nomination.
Right.
They have abrogated that duty. They need coaching. They needed you, and they needed you. Anything else?
No.
All right.
Round of applause for Sophia.